Welcome, everyone. I'm Lori Clark, and I am here to share with you part one of a three-part series on menopause. I am going through menopause at this very moment in time, and it is full. I know if you are feeling the beginning stages and you're in perimenopause, or perhaps you have made it through that and you're now in menopause, there is a different way for each one of us. There is not one way that this transition of our life works for us. It is, in my opinion, and from all the different people I've talked about, each one has their own set of symptoms or maybe no symptoms. Either way, I have something for you. I made this series, and after I made it, I realized that it might be really helpful to create a journal or a workbook. Now, I say or because some people really like journaling, and other people do not like journaling. They don't want to put all the intimate details of their life or their thoughts on paper. So some people prefer workbooks, some people prefer journal, and I use this term interchangeably, and because it is different for everyone. But what I really want to note is that it is a space for you to read the reflection that I have given. So I give sort of a piece of my story or a piece of my menopausal journey. And I have some things that, we look back. I encourage everyone to look back at their period cycles. And then I draw a connection to the menopausal cycle. And so in this journal and workbook, that is what I do. I just draw your attention to some things. And I wanted to provide a space for you to jot down your thoughts, write down some notes, doodle, or whatever you want. And I did that for you in this space, which is this guide to menopause. It's a guided journal. And so that is what I'm offering you at the end of this podcast. You can go over to my Stan store and you can pick up the digital download for your digital journal. It is not printable at the moment. You can print it from home, but what I am doing is offering it to you across all your devices and any place that you want to have that you have access to PDFs. So with that in mind, let's get to this part one of the menopausal series. If you have menopause, or you're going into perimenopause, or you're feeling the transition of your life coming towards you, maybe you are a man who knows of a woman. You have someone in your life who is talking about menopause and what's happening in her body, and you are feeling curious, or maybe you don't understand. This is my personal experience. This is my personal opinion on some of the things that I'm experiencing myself. I'm 49 this year, and I am, by doctor's definition, my doctor said to me just recently, "You are in menopause." And I said, okay, I think I got this. For a few minutes, I thought I was going to be fine until I walked out of the office and had a massive hot flash. And then anxiety came and panic, and then I started the cycle. So the thing about menopause is the thing that I was worried about for years. I heard about menopause. I listened to women who were older than me talk about this change, this transition, this menopause. And I just want to tell you straight up, this was not a menopause for me. This was a Meno-slap, as if this moment that I knew was coming it just decided to arrive. And when it did, it felt as though it just slapped me upside the head. And I had this ringing in my ears. And I was like, what on earth has just happened to me? So I don't call it menopause. I do say the pause every now and then, but more often than not, I'm referring it to as Meno-slap because that's what it feels like for me. Because you know what? Pausing isn't what happened here. This was more like a jolt. And I was really in a space of upheaval. I was absolutely rocked by some of the experiences and the symptoms that I was having. Anxiety was something that I didn't have at the first run, but halfway through my first year, I started getting anxiety. I had hot flashes continuous. Those have not stopped. But all I know is that there's a lot of messiness. There's a lot of things that feel completely out of order. And as I began to reflect back on this journey, I was like, well, what is it that feels so different than before? Like, I felt, I don't know, I'm sure you can relate, untethered. Um, I felt disoriented, sort of like I was here, but now I'm over here and I'm not sure what over here actually is. I have no frame of reference. Lots of the people I know are either wanting to talk about it or they're kind of not wanting to talk about it because they too feel a sense of maybe they've been slapped and they have ringing in their ears. Some of my friends are on, hormone replacement therapy, and other friends that I know aren't. They're just enduring. And there's some who are in denial. And all of these levels have created for me a sense of loss, a sense of disorientation, because I'm just not sure. And the other piece inside of this disoriented thing is a disconnection to all of the things that I really loved. So, we'll get into that. But I think back on the menopause journey. I was like, well, where did I get where did I learn this from? And so I think this is a really important point, and I'm going to ask you this question. Where was menopause or discussion of menopause or talk about periods? Where did that happen for you? How did you find this in your life? What happened to you? What were those conversations? What did you see growing up? Because this is really important. So for me, I saw menopause as a very, very difficult experience. I watched my sweet mom. I watched her go through it. And I'm not laughing. It's like a nervous laugh because I said to her the other day, "Mom, I'm doing some research for this this video and show I'm going to be doing, and I'm just going to go out on my own and talk about menopause." And I said, "I I am so nervous because, Mom, like it was not pleasant for you." And she said, "Oh, honey, it was so hard for me." And we shared a little bit about the difficulty of her journey. She had um, troubles. She had migraine headaches, anxiety. She had some depression. She went from doctor to doctor, and no one was able to help her. And I know from talking to her, she felt so alone. And I can say that even though I have an incredible community, even though I have an incredible group of people around me, I still feel alone. And it was during this conversation and then upon reflection afterwards where I really began to introspect what I saw happening as a child, as a teenager, what was modeled to me, and then what I have overlaid my own experience onto that. And I think in some ways, my own expectations. So here's the thing. Back then, there was not a lot of discussion about periods for that matter. There was not a lot of discussion about menopause. So what I saw was not much in my community, in where I lived during the time, in my family system, in my family culture. This is not something that we were communicating about. It wasn't that, well, I don't know. I asked a lot of questions. It was just that the answers were not being relayed to me. So my grandma, I just remember, was quiet. She just wanted nothing more than to love us, serve us. She was just the most amazing cook. She was a baker. She was a seamstress. Oh my gosh, she was outstanding. And she didn't complain. She didn't complain about these things. So I didn't ever have a sense of this happening. We didn't talk about it. It just was not something that was on the discussion table. And so then I think back to when I was 12 and I'm like, okay, here's the thing. I wanted my period. Not sure about any of you out there, but I wanted it. It was like I wholeheartedly embraced the moment that I got my period. It was a rite of passage, but I didn't get my information from my family. I got the information from my friends because it just wasn't something we talked about. And so when I think back on this, I think back to I was 12 years old, I got my period, and it began to frame my life. It began to frame how I lived in the world. Every month, I knew that 5 to 7 of those days, I was going to have a period. I was going to have cravings. I was going to have sugar cravings. I was going to wear certain clothes. I was going to not wear certain clothes. I was going to swim sometimes and not swim other times. I was going to be grumpy. I was going to be sick. I needed to feel like I wanted to lay down and snuggle into things and just kind of relax. I had become accustomed to that. My whole life, from 12 years old to 47 years old, was framed within a 4-week cycle. And I used that as a parameter for all of the things that I just mentioned. And I used it as a sign from my body. Sometimes I wasn't keeping track and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I think I'm getting my period. I feel like a headache. I feel exhausted. Oh my gosh, I yelled at that person, or I was doing this or I was doing that. The period, whether I knew it or not, was releasing the flow of what had happened over that time in my life, over those 3 weeks or 4 weeks or those 28 days prior. It was coming to me as a way of cleansing that creative birth space and letting go for a new, fresh creation and a fresh start. So it wasn't just a physical thing, it was also a spiritual position, an emotional position, because I knew that I would have less energy around my menstrual cycle and more energy afterwards. I could make crap happen so quickly after I'd had my cycle. And so this certainty and predictability was something that I became to know and love and rely on. It wasn't necessarily the fact that I loved my period, but I loved the predictability of it, and it told me a lot of things. But the one thing that it gave me was a tethering. I was grounded. But I got to tell you something. When the slap came, when Meno-slap was ringing in my ears, I got to tell you, I lost all of that. So I had no period, and I could not figure out why I was exhausting myself. Like I would go, 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 go without stopping. In my work, I would do all things to all people, and I had no ceiling. It was really weird because I felt all this, many symptoms, not all the symptoms, but bloating. I had, constipation. I had brain fog. I had hot flashes. Like we're talking hot freaking flashes, which are brutal because they happen in the most unpredictable times. And I had never had a hot flash in my life. So as you begin to switch out of this, these things come. You think you got the fever. You're like, oh, I got a flu because I keep having a fever. No, you're having a hot flash. Ugh. And then that time where you're standing and talking to somebody and your upper lip starts to sweat and then your under your boobs gets wet and your armpits and you're like, where I can't, and the back of your neck all of a sudden dripping, and you just feel embarrassed, you feel mortified, you don't know how to talk about it. And people look at you and they can see that your lip is sweating and you're just pretending it doesn't exist. That's menopause. And many of us pretend it doesn't exist. I did for years. So my body was feeling out of control. It was feeling like it had no moorings. And the other day I began to reflect. And I thought, okay, what is happening right now? Well, feeling like I don't have any moorings. But what did I like from back then? And then it dawned on me. I used my cycle very much like a bowling alley. Envision a bowling alley. You roll the bowling ball, the ball goes down the lane. If it goes off to the side, it hits a bumper and it comes back. Well, I didn't have any bumpers, any stoppers. I actually think lots of times I didn't even have a lane. It's like bouncing down the because there's so many experiences. And this disconnection's happening. Oh my God. I know. Okay. And then the two things that I really, really struggled with. So I had food storage issues. And I mean like storage, like as in the food stores in the front of me in my belly and creates this like bloating. It creates this spongy tummy, and I'm like, and it's just full of fluid and cortisol, and you're like, what the hell is happening to me? My skin feels a little watery underneath. And the biggest thing for me is my hair started to fall out. I'd say to my friends, okay, so you having food storage issues? Or like, what are you doing? And they'd say, oh yeah, not me, not whatever. Well, no one could really pinpoint any one of the problems. It just was happening differently for everyone else. So my hair started falling out. It started to thin. It started to like right here. I was getting this. My part was opening. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't wear my hair like this anymore because it it had more scalp there. Like I could see more white. And I would brush my hair and it would come out in these massive clumps in my hand, in my brush. And I was panicking. And what I really wanted was I wanted stability. What I really wanted was the chaos to stop. I wanted that feeling to go away. And I had no mooring. I had no bumper. I just had this rocky road that the seemingly menopausal ball was rolling down. It was bouncing away. And there I was trying to keep my focus. I was trying to keep my goals and I wasn't sleeping and I was having all these problems. And so this created a sense of me not feeling safe in my body because I was like, well, what's happening to me? And I couldn't bank on anything. So aside from my emotional issues, aside from my problems, aside from all of those things, this menopausal slap was a very difficult experience. Like I say, I watched my mom. I watched my mom go from profession to professional, asking for help, asking for relief, asking. And what I realized is she didn't have a lot of people in her life that were talking about it. And so I took something that was my experience of when I got my period, we didn't really talk about it. And I took that and I began to talk to just a few people, but I didn't quite know how. And it was that experience where I realized, oh my gosh, I think I'm overlaying what happened to me back then. And I'm thinking that that is how I should do it now. That I should, just not share about it, that maybe I should feel quiet about it, or I barely speak about it, or I feel sad about it, or I feel, like I lost something. I remember as a kid, because I didn't have that support, I was like, oh, I can handle this. I have to handle this. And even though the symptoms were crazy, sometimes during my period, I just handled it because that was what I learned to do. And this menopausal journey was no different. I just handled it. I just endured. I didn't talk about it. I powered through, even though I was afraid, even though that I had, symptoms that were embarrassing and I felt isolated. I didn't care. I just thought, oh, maybe I'm the only one. Thought, well, what's wrong with me? But oh my God, if it feels this way, oh, then the part where there needs to be a validation is I thought something was wrong with me. I thought maybe someone else was handling it better than me. And maybe there could be other ways. And I realized that I was missing compassion for myself. I was missing some things. And I was trying to rush through the sadness. My menopausal consultant said to me the other day, this is a journey. And it's okay to be sad. And it's okay to feel like you have been slapped. And it's okay to feel like your ears are ringing. It's okay. It's okay. You haven't lost who you are. You get to, in some ways, reinvent how you see your cycle. You get to reinvent a cycle. You get to reinvent some ways to do this. And so that was super inspiring for me. And as we talk about this, and as I blog and vlog this menopausal journey, I just want you to know that if you are feeling that there is a disconnection, that you're feeling slapped by the paws, and isolated, I just want you to know that I hear you. So this label of menopause, this label that is not quite a pause. I know it's pause means transition, but good Lord, it didn't feel like that to me. There are so many layers. There are feelings. There is shame. There is embarrassment. There is low libido. There's what to do, what test to take. How do you do this? There are so many things. And so I just want you to know that I'm here and I'm on this freaking journey, and I don't know where it's going to end up. I literally don't know where it's going to end up. But to make matters worse, and I want to end with this because this is why, what leads to the next piece, I went on HRT. I'm a 1.5 years into menopause, and I went on HRT, and it worked for a while. And then one day, and I had no symptoms. It had pulled everything down. And then one day, my lip starts to sweat. I'm like, what's going on? And the symptoms all started again. Because sometimes that happens when I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe somebody needs to come on the show and talk about the menopausal cycle and why it comes back when you least expect it, and how maybe you level out and then something else happens. I know for me that the hormone or the hot flashes haven't changed. They did once, but then they came back because my levels needed more adjustment. And that just created more frustration. So I just want to say that I'm with you. I don't know. But one thing you can do is you can look back. You can ask yourself, okay, what did I do when I first got my period? How was the conversation? What happened to me? And then look at yourself now and say, okay, so here's where I am now. Am I doing menopause or the Meno-slap in the same way that I was doing my period, how I lived my life with my period. Because I've got to tell you, we don't have to do that now. Maybe back then, because that time we didn't have a lot of ways to share, but now we do. Knowledge is our friend. We have so many forums, so many ways that we can learn. This is really powerful. And we get to show ourselves that we can do this differently. We get to show ourselves that just because we maybe didn't have the opportunity to share what we needed and get the support we needed when we had our periods, we can actually do that today. And we can learn to empower ourselves and lean into our own life and what our life is showing us. And so that is the one piece that I found so important. So if you're untethered, if you feel unanchored, you know what? Go and ask yourself, okay, what am I overlaying that experience then to this experience now? And then begin to think about, okay, what am I putting in place of when I was having my period? And then we can talk about things that we can put in place in a 5 to 7 day week out of the month, where you can put some really important things in place that remind you of who you are, that remind you of what you are as a woman and how you will be able to restore and revive and let go and bring in creative flow, even if you don't have your period. There's always lots to talk about. Have a fabulous day. Welcome, everyone. I'm Lori Clark, and I am here to share with you part 1 of a 3-part series on menopause. I am going through menopause at this very moment in time, and it is full. I know if you are feeling the beginning stages and you're in perimenopause, or perhaps you have made it through that and you're now in menopause, there is a different way for each one of us. There is not one way that this transition of our life works for us. It is, in my opinion, and from all the different people I've talked about, each one has their own set of symptoms or maybe no symptoms. Either way, I have something for you. I made this series, and after I made it, I realized that it might be really helpful to create a journal or a workbook. Now, I say or because some people really like journaling, and other people do not like journaling. They don't want to put all the intimate details of their life or their thoughts on paper. So some people prefer workbook, some people prefer journal, and I use this term interchangeably, and because it is different for everyone. But what I really want to note is that it is a space for you to read the reflection that I have given. So I give sort of a piece of my story or a piece of my menopausal journey. And I have some things that, we look back. I encourage everyone to look back at their period cycles. And then I draw a connection to the menopausal cycle. And so in this journal and workbook, that is what I do. I just draw your attention to some things. And I wanted to provide a space for you to jot down your thoughts, write down some notes, doodle, or whatever you want. And I did that for you in this space, which is this guide to menopause. It's a guided journal. And so that is what I'm offering you at the end of this podcast. You can go over to my Stan store and you can pick up the digital download for your digital journal. It is not printable at the moment. You can print it from home, but what I am doing is offering it to you across all your devices and any place that you want to have, that you have access to PDFs. So with that in mind, let's get to this part one of the menopausal series.